John, you know, my wife and I really want to express what a wonderful evening we've had here at your home among your friends and sharing their music.
Well, that's very kind of you, but I think everybody in this guitar pulling is waiting for what to me is the big moment, and that's to hear from Billy Graham, right, folks?
Well, thank you, John. I do have a little Christmas story that I could tell that maybe the children might be interested in, and maybe some of the older children as well.
We'd love to hear it.
Well, you know, I always figured that at Christmas time, it's always Christmas when a little child is born. The angels sing their song in somebody's sky, and heaven fills the atmosphere of somebody's home with its Gloria in Excelsis, and the message of peace on earth and goodwill among men. As Bret Harte tells a story, it happened in Roary Camp during the gold rush days in old California. Peace and goodwill were almost unknown at Roary Camp until that little baby was born. Even among the mining camps of the lawless West, Roary Camp was known to be among the worst. When men differed in opinion over their cards, they settled the dispute by shooting each other. To die a natural death at Roary Camp was almost unknown. There was just one woman there, poor old Sal. She was everybody's woman. During the birth of her baby that night, poor Sal died. And thus the baby belonged to the camp, and the camp decided to do its duty by the baby. The baby was lying in the rags in a box, but the men felt that the box wouldn't do. So a man was sent 80 miles on a mule train to get a rosewood cradle, the best that money could buy. The cradle was brought, but the rags seemed out of place, and the messenger had to return all the way to Sacramento for lace, regardless of the cost. But when the little baby lying amidst the lace in the rosewood cradle took his place in the middle of the room, the men noticed a thing they'd never noticed before. The floor was absolutely filthy. And when they'd scrubbed the floor and made it clean, they made a new discovery. They saw that in order to match the floor and the rosewood cradle and the lacework and the baby, the walls would have to be cleaned and the ceilings whitewashed and the windows draped with curtains. There also had to be long periods of quiet to allow the baby to sleep. And so the quality that had given Roary Camp its name left it. One day, the men took the cradle out to the mines, but the mining area was a dusty and dreary place. So to please the baby's eye, they planted brightly colored flowers round about the spot where the cradle stood. And so the mine became a garden. Best of all, a change came over the appearance of the men themselves. Up at Tuttle's store, the owner placed mirrors round about the room in which the men lounged and chatted and smoked. And soon there was a great demand for soap and shaving materials, collars, ties, and even suits of clothes. The baby had transformed everything. The Roman world itself was a roaring camp 2,000 years ago. Men were either slave owners or slaves. Womanhood was often debased. Unwanted children were often strangled or drowned. And outside of Judaism, there was little to prevent it, and few seemed to care. Then a little child was born in Bethlehem. In the presence of that little child, men saw, as they had never seen before, that the world needed changing. The cry of the slave could not harmonize with the song of the angels. So slavery had to eventually go. The degradation of womanhood was put to shame by the Virgin Mother. A halo felt upon the brows of motherhood. And ever since that little baby was born, childhood has been treated as a more sacred thing. As the little child of Bethlehem asserts his authority over the hearts of men, the things that still disfigure our civilization could vanish one by one. The bitterness of our international strife, the vice of moral decadence, the horrors of crime, the social injustices, all of these must someday yield to his authority. As the cradle is exchanged for a cross, so someday it will have a crown. And the Bible says that every knee will bow to His authority. And certainly, as the babe of Bethlehem is the Son of God, the transformation of the world, like Roaring Camp, will be carried to completion someday. And the same is true of you as an individual. The Christ child must be born afresh in your heart. Your heart must become His inn. And angels can sing again at this Christmas season of peace and goodwill, as they sang in the fields of Bethlehem so long ago. Shepherds will come once more to see the wonders that have come to pass. Men and women transformed by His power. John, that was the little story I wanted to say to you tonight.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, you've been such a great blessing to so many millions of people. I just want to say, God bless you, Billy Graham.
Well, God bless you and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. John Carter, come here, son. Come here.
And now today, we have a great privilege in store for all of us that are here on this wonderful occasion. Johnny Cash, one of the great superstars of our time, and a very close personal friend of mine, and a man who loves the Lord, is here with us, and he's going to tell all of us that are here today a Christmas story. Johnny?
Please do. Thank you very much. Among the mining camps of the lawless West, Roaring Camp was known to be among the worst. When men differed in opinion over their cards and to settle the dispute, shot each other dead on the spot, the gamblers at the neighboring tables merely nodded and just went on with their games, because to die a natural death at Roaring Camp was to die by the gun. There was just one woman there, poor old Cherokee Sal. Now, Sal was everybody's woman. She had a baby, and during the birth of the baby that night, she died. Sal died, that is. Old Stumpy, who in earlier and better days had been a medical student, he did his best to save her. Managed to save the baby, but saving the life of Sal was just beyond his skill. The baby belonged to the camp now, and the camp decided to do its duty bravely. It was Christmas time, and goodwill towards men was unknown in Roaring Camp. The baby was lying on some rags in a box, but everybody felt that the box wouldn't do, so a man was sent 80 miles on a mule train to get a rosewood cradle, the best that money could buy. The cradle was brought, but then the rags seemed out of place, and the messenger had to return to Sacramento for the daintiest, softest lace to be found, no matter what it cost. But then, when that pink little baby lying there amidst the snowy white froth and the rosewood cradle took its place in the middle of the room, the men noticed a thing that they had never noticed before. The floor was filthy. And when they scrubbed the floor, as only miners could scrub a floor, and made it as clean as the day on which the boards were laid, they made a discovery. They saw that in order to match the floor, the rosewood cradle, the lacework, and the baby, the walls would have to be cleaned and the ceilings whitewashed, and the windows mended and draped with curtains. There also had to be long periods of quiet to allow the baby to sleep, so the quality that has given Roaring Camp its name left it, because they cut down on their drinking and their noise making. Best of all, a change came over the appearance of the men themselves. There was a demand for soap and shaving material, collars, ties, even suits of clothes. The little baby had transformed everything. Well, the Roman world itself was a roaring camp 2,000 years ago. Men were either slave owners or slaves, often either pitiless tyrants or cringing victims. Women were debased, dishonored. Unwanted children were strangled or drowned or sold as slaves. And outside of Judaism, there was very little to prevent it and nobody cared. But then, a little child was born in Bethlehem. And in the presence of that little child, men saw as they had never seen before that the world needed changing. The cry of a slave couldn't harmonize with the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men that the angels sang. Slavery would have to go. The degradation of womanhood was put to shame by the human grace and divine glory of a virgin mother. A halo fell upon the brow of motherhood. And ever since that little baby was born, childhood has been treated as a much more sacred thing. Now, if the little child of Bethlehem could assert his authority over the hearts of men, the smudges that still disfigure our civilization could vanish one by one. And if we could live with the divine purity of the Christ child in our hearts, the inner change in us could work its wonders of an obvious outward change, as it happened years ago at Roary Camp. You know, I was really happy when I heard you were calling this a family Christmas, because I thought that meant I could sing a song with June Carter.
Oh, that's great.
How about it? Huh?
Well, I am a part of this family.
Yes, you are. Baby.
I sure am.
I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play, and wild and sweet the words repeat of peace on earth, goodwill to men. I thought how as the day had come, the belfries of all Christendom had rolled along, unbroken song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then in despair, I hung my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong, and it mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men.
Then peal the bells more loud and deep. God is not bid nor does he sleep. The wrong shall fade, the right prevail, of peace on earth, goodwill to men.
Still ringing, singing on its way, the world revolves from night to day. A voice, a chime, a chance sublime, a peace on earth, goodwill to men. Then peal the bells more loud and deep. God is not dead, nor does he sleep. The wrong shall fade, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men.
Thank you, Johnny and June.